There is a question most of us spend our entire lives trying to avoid it. What happens to a man when everything that made him powerful is stripped away? I don't just mean his strength or his title. I mean the story he told himself about who he really was. This isn't a story about a city under siege or a masked man hiding in the dark. Not really. It's a question about you. About that terrifying moment when the floor disappears beneath your feet and you are left with nothing but the truth of what remains. I'm Sterling, and this is Sterling Story Breakdown. Bruce Wayne knew that moment, and what he did with it is the reason this story still matters. It begins with something that looks like weakness, but it isn't. A man allows himself to be captured. No resistance, no struggle. He is chained, contained, seemingly powerless in the hands of an enemy called Bane. To anyone watching, the game is already over. But it isn't. Because there are two kinds of control in this world. There is the control of the moment, the desperate need to win right now in front of everyone. And then there is the control of the design, the willingness to lose small so that something larger survives. Bruce Wayne let go of the first kind. He never let go of the second. This is the first quiet lesson buried here. Real power rarely announces itself. It waits. It absorbs the humiliation of the moment because it is already living several moves ahead. The wise don't fight every battle they're handed. They choose the ones that decide the war. But before there could be a rising, there had to be a falling. And it wasn't the fall anyone expected. Long before Bane, we find Bruce Wayne alone, swallowed by the enormous silence of Wayne Manor. A cane in his hand, a body that no longer moves the way it used to. But the real injury isn't in his leg. It's in his belief. Somewhere in the privacy of his own mind, he has quietly decided that he is no longer the man he once was. He isn't saying, "I am struggling to be him." He isn't saying, "I am recovering." He's telling himself something far more dangerous. I am not him anymore. This is where so many of us get lost, not in the failure itself, but in the identity we build out of the failure. Defeat is a wound, but the story we tell ourselves afterward, that is a scar. And it can either heal, or it can become a cage. Outside his window, Gotham is still burning, quietly waiting for an answer. But Bruce can no longer hear the call. He has stopped believing he is the kind of man calls are meant for. Every myth of rebirth begins exactly here. Not with the enemy, not with the battle, but with a man who has gone still inside himself, who has, in some private, unspoken way, already surrendered before anyone forced him to. Into this stillness walks Selina Kyle, soft-spoken, guarded, seemingly harmless. She is performing, and Bruce Wayne, a man who has read every liar Gotham ever produced, misses it completely. Why? not because the signs weren't there. They were. He misses it because he needed something more than he needed the truth. He needed a reason to feel human again. A reason to believe the world could still hold warmth for him. And when we need a story badly enough, our minds will quietly edit reality to provide it. This isn't a flaw unique to Bruce Wayne. It's built into being human. We rarely deceive ourselves about the things we don't care about. We lie to ourselves precisely where the stakes are highest. In love, in trust, in the fragile hope that this time, things will be different. And then comes the moment that strips away the last illusion, the first confrontation. Batman and Bane. Bruce enters that underground arena with the same confidence that once broke the Joker, that once saved a burning city. He believes, on some unspoken level, that this confidence is permanent, that what worked before will work again. But Bane isn't fighting the same fight. There is no fear in him, no hesitation, no theater. He understands, with total clarity, what he is doing. Batman does not. And for the first time in his life as a symbol, Batman doesn't just lose. He is broken. It's the myth of the fallen king, the ruler who believes his old crown will always fit, until the day the world changes shape around him, and the crown becomes a burden. Old strength, unexamined, doesn't remain strength forever. Sometimes, it becomes the very thing that gets you destroyed. Then comes the sentence that lands heavier than any physical blow. You merely adopted the darkness. I was born in it, molded by it. In that moment, Batman loses more than a fight. He loses the last thing holding his identity together. His strength, gone. His tools, gone. His city, beyond his reach. And most devastating of all, the role that gave his suffering meaning has been taken from him. He is no longer Batman. He is simply a broken man, lying in the dark, with no mask left to hide behind. It is one of the oldest stories we tell about ourselves. The fallen hero, stripped of his armor, forced to discover if there was ever a person underneath the legend, or if the legend was all there ever was. Power means nothing when you are standing at the bottom with none of it left. They carry him to the deepest point imaginable, a pit, ancient and forgotten, a prison with no roof and no mercy. Sunlight reaches its floor, but hope does not. Every man trapped there believes the same unshakable truth. No one climbs out of this place. Except one person did, a child. This is the truest myth inside the story. The descent into darkness, the soul buried before it can be reborn. This pit is not just a location. It is the oldest metaphor we have for the place inside ourselves where we go when we believe we are finished. He attempts the climb again and again. He jumps, he reaches, he falls. From the outside, it looks like total effort. It looks like a man giving everything he has. But nothing changes, because there is still a rope tied around his waist. That rope isn't just equipment. It is a psychological confession. The rope means, if I fail, I will still be safe. The rope means, I have not fully committed. And the mind, sensing that safety net beneath it, will never release its full capacity. It holds something back because it can afford to. This is the quiet tragedy so many people live inside without ever naming it. Working hard, trying constantly, and never moving an inch. Because somewhere, unconsciously, they have kept a rope, a fallback. As long as that rope exists, full transformation cannot happen. You cannot evolve while still protecting the version of yourself that needs evolving. Then, one day, the rope is gone. A fellow prisoner tells him the truth about the child who escaped. They climbed without the rope, not out of courage, out of necessity. If the child didn't jump, the child would die. There was no alternative to hold on to. This is the moment Bruce Wayne understands the truth beneath his failure. It was never about strength. It was about commitment. As long as survival felt optional, his body and mind cooperated only partially. But the moment survival becomes the only outcome, the moment the fall means everything ends, something ancient and dormant inside a person ignites. Fear, treated honestly, does not paralyze. It fuels. Real fear, the kind with no rope, no escape hatch, no soft landing, forces the entire self into motion. This is the transformation that separates surviving from evolving. Survival is holding on to what still functions. Evolution is releasing what no longer serves you, even when it feels like the only thing keeping you alive. He jumps without the rope, and this time, he does not fall. Above ground, the world hasn't stood still. Selina Kyle delivers him directly into Bane's hands. It isn't hatred that drives her. It's fear. The same fear that has shaped every choice she has ever made. She has always lived in survival mode, never trusting fully, always keeping an exit. When forced to choose between loyalty and self-preservation, she chooses what she has always chosen. It's a hard truth to accept. Betrayal doesn't always come from cruelty. Sometimes it comes from someone who is simply more frightened than they are loyal. The deepest wounds rarely come from strangers. They come from the people we let close enough to hurt us. Because closeness is exactly what makes real damage possible. And just when the picture seems complete, it shatters again. The woman Bruce trusted as an ally, the one he believed stood beside him in rebuilding what was lost. She is revealed as the architect of his ruin. Talia, not Bane. Bane was only the fist. She was always the mind. The deepest wounds in life come from the trust we extend without reservation. Trust is what lowers the shield. It's what gives someone the map to our exact points of vulnerability. A stranger cannot dismantle you from the inside. Someone close to you can. It's an uncomfortable reminder. Total control over the outside world is always an illusion, even when you believe you've done everything right. With law gone and structure collapsed, Gotham becomes a mirror held up to human nature itself. Some turn toward chaos, driven by the savage instinct to survive. Others quietly form small circles of protection, because collaboration is still a survival strategy. And into the vacuum left by law, a new kind of power rises. Not just, but built on fear. Gotham teaches us something the film never says out loud. Humanity is neither purely noble nor purely savage. It is a mirror. Remove the structure, and you don't discover what people truly are. You discover what conditions bring out of them. And then, when everyone has already decided the story is finished, he comes back. Not because everything is suddenly ready, not because his body has fully healed or his fear has disappeared. He comes back because he makes a decision to move forward despite the fear, not in the absence of it. This return is the oldest pattern of transformation, the descent into darkness, followed by the climb back into the light, carrying something the old self never had. The fallen must go all the way down before they can rise as someone new, not the same person restored, a different person, forged. Bruce comes back not as the man who wore the mask out of pain and guilt, but as a man who chooses it now, with full awareness of what it costs. In the final act, Batman carries the weight of the city's destruction into the sky, alone. It would be easy to say he does this because he has nothing left to lose, but that misses the deeper truth. If he had nothing left to lose, this wouldn't be a sacrifice. It would be a surrender to despair. The truth is the opposite. He has, quietly, found something to lose again. Connection, purpose, the flicker of a life worth returning to. And it is precisely because those things matter to him now that his choice becomes meaningful. Real sacrifice is not the absence of value. It is choosing to risk something you have finally learned to value again. This is the difference between a man who gives up and a man who gives everything. One says, "Nothing matters, so it doesn't matter if I die." The other says, "Everything matters, and I choose to protect it anyway, at any cost to myself." When he disappears, something else remains behind. Not a name, a symbol, an idea, something other people can pick up and carry forward, long after the man who created it is gone. This is the final layer of the myth. The fallen hero becomes larger than himself. His personal story dissolves into something the world can use. The man was necessary to create the meaning, but the meaning no longer needs the man to survive. He finally understands something most people never get the chance to. He doesn't have to be the mask forever. He only has to make sure what the mask stands for keeps living in someone else's hands. So here is what this story actually says. Underneath the fights, the masks, and the city in flames, a man is not defined by the moment he falls. Everyone falls. The pit is not rare. It's the most common place a human life ever visits. What is rare, what is nearly sacred, is the moment a person stops asking, "How do I get out?" and starts asking, "What am I willing to become on the other side?" Survival keeps you alive inside the old shape of yourself. Evolution breaks that shape completely and asks you to walk out as someone your old self would not have recognized. That rope you're still holding, the one you don't even notice anymore because you tied it so long ago, that rope is the only thing standing between where you are and where you could go. There is no soundtrack for the moment you finally let it go. No crowd watching, no guarantee waiting on the other side. Just you, in the dark, deciding quietly, without applause, Before you leave, ask yourself, what is the rope you're still holding? What fear keeps you from letting go? And if there were no safety net, who would you become? There is no soundtrack for the moment you finally let it go. Whether you are going to climb